Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the new Makeup by Mario collection. You guys, the Makeup by Mario collection has arrived. We do have quite a few items that I've picked up today based on your requests for which items you guys wanted me to do and to test out. So all three palettes I picked up, the mattes, the metallics, and then the metallic formula that can be used also with a mixing medium. So I've got all of those. Plus I have the eye prime and set little trio and both of the highlighting products. So all of those are going to be talked about today based on popular demand. There's a few things that were omitted, so I will leave a full link to all of his entire makeup collection exclusively sold at Sephora in the description box. So if you guys want to know my firsthand thoughts on these products, whether or not I think that they actually are worth the price point, then just keep watching. Let's get right on into it. We do have a lot to talk about today, so I figured I would start with the eye palettes. There are three that he's released, and he calls this first collection the eye collection because he doesn't have any blushes or bronzers yet. He doesn't have a full out setting powder or base products. He just has the eye products, an eye primer, eye brushes, makeup wipes, things like that. So all of the outer packaging for this line comes in this kind of material. You can see here that it is, I ripped it off on the edge there because I really couldn't get into it for the life of me. It's a little bit of a tighter seal, but this is a really sleek outer packaging. If this were the packaging of the palettes and all of the compacts as well, I would have loved that, to be honest, because this looks super, super sharp to me. It's just a regular cardboard finish, but if he did this, I guess it would be similar to like the NARS makeup, so maybe it would be too close for copyright or something, but the black and the white is so sleek to me. Maybe like a glossy finish, that would have been so nice. But he did actually pick the opposite in color combination for a palette. So you can see here that this is one of the eye palette's outer packaging. And you can see here that it is a white glossy finish. It is a plastic packaging and it has by Mario in the corner here. Now, when I was unboxing a lot of these palettes, what I found was there was a lot of kind of inconsistencies in the packaging. You can see on the back of some of these that we have like what looks like maybe pigment along the edge of the back sticker. We do have by Mario, sometimes there's like black flecks kind of near there, or there's black flecks along the outer packaging. I don't know if that is from this cardboard here, or if it's from just manufacturing these bad boys and maybe like some of the blackness from up here gets scraped off. But to me, there are little inconsistencies here, and this is a very expensive line. So this is something that I think moving forward with like additional launches, he might want to sharpen up with manufacturing, because there's just some things that make it just under perfect to me, but that's being extremely picky. Obviously, you guys know I'm always going to be honest, but from a consumer perspective, seeing like pigment along a sticker and stuff like that, to me, it cheapens the overall product, which I know he wouldn't want. We are going to talk about the palettes first. Like I said, this one is the matte palette. This is a really, really beautiful palette, I must say. Essentially, this is inspired by all sorts of clients and their skin tones and things like that. So basically, he made a universally flattering palette to flatter each and every skin tone. That was the goal by this. I do think that this is something that looks very stunning in pan. This is going to be something also that's going to be best used as a makeup artist because you have all mattes in one palette, all your shimmers in another palette. Sometimes I get critiques when I review something and people are like, well, that was for makeup artistry, so it's okay that it's like that. For instance, an example is the Dior Backstage face palettes. People often have concerns about the packaging. It has to be see-through so that a makeup artist could see what shade they would use. Here's the thing to me, you guys. I think that every single brand, if you decide to sell to the public, you need to think about the public's perspective. Just like when you launch a makeup line, yes, people with makeup artistry and pro skill are going to use your products and probably use them the best way because they're formally professionally trained, right? But when you think about a formula, you also have to make sure that it's going to be user-friendly for the amateur, for the makeup enthusiast. Also, you're going to have to make sure that the packaging, that the style of packaging is also going to please the public as a whole. So I actually think that he did a great job with this. Of course, I do have, like I said, some kind of about the packaging style. I do wish it kind of looked like this. That's just me though. Again, preference, not a big deal, not hashing the brand in that regard. There's a huge mirror on this side. It's actually posing as a frosted bit there because I haven't taken off the plastic. So I'll actually do that right now. There we go. So here is that full mirror that you can see, the full size of the top lid there, which is excellent for on the go. Here are the swatches of the mattes, and they honestly all swatch like butter. To me, it's definitely a creamy formula. I wouldn't say it's the creamiest I have ever used. Like when I'm thinking about creamy mattes, like in the Natasha Denona Biba palette, these are not quite as creamy as those, but they do have enough creaminess and consistency. When you swatch them, they're very smooth, they're pigmented across the board. These are about 2 swipes each. This entire collection, by the way, is a Sephora exclusive. It's on his website also, but it is on Sephora as well. Sephora US and Sephora Canada. He ships worldwide through his site. All 3 of these palettes, the mattes, the shimmers, and the metallic one, which I'm about to show you, is 48 American dollars. They are 64 Canadian dollars each. The next palette we're talking about is this beauty. This is all of the metallic shimmers in one palette, and this is his metallic shimmer palette. There are 12 shades in here, just like in the mattes, except every single one of these finishes is shimmer. This formula also is a really nice smooth consistency, extremely pigmented, I think, and the swatches demonstrate for themselves. You do have a beautiful arrangement here of colors. In my opinion, this is definitely an accessory palette, just like the mattes is going to be an accessory palette. You can definitely use the mattes by themselves. You can use the shimmers by themselves too. Don't get me wrong, but I think if you're going to combine the two, then obviously you have to buy both of them, which depending on your budget might not be your favorite thing to do. But if you want just shimmers, you can get just shimmers, just mattes, you can get just mattes. They are very complementary as well, which I do appreciate. So upon working with them on my eye, every single time I was working with one of these shadows, whether it be a matte, whether it be a shimmer, they all were amazing. I did find some fallout with the shimmer palette, so do know that. When I was using the shimmers today, I used this one today, this gold over here. I used this kind of brown. I've used this one over here also, this yellow gold. So I used quite a few of them today, just so I could get a good idea of just some parts of consistency. I mean, if you don't try every single shade, you don't know if there's any duds yet. So I will come back with a full review when I've tested every single shade. But the same with the mattes here. I actually used quite a few today. I used this one to set overall my eye, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So I've used quite a few. So we're looking at about 5 to 6 in each palette, which I feel like gives me a really good first impression to report to you guys what I think. The next palette is called the Master Metals. This is one that is gonna look a little dirty to you because I have already played with this a ton. I actually swatched these dry because you can work with them dry, but you can also transform them with a mixing medium. He has a mixing medium in his line, but get this, you guys. The ingredient list for his mixing medium is identical, even in order, to this one. This is the one that I have. This is the Metron, no, there's no T in that. Metron or Miron? Sorry, I cannot pronounce this brand. This is the mixing fluid that I picked up for some use with some of the Pat McGrath shades that I've used before. This ingredient list is identical to his in every way. I don't know if that means that it's exactly the same in performance, but it's a good idea that it's got to be pretty close. If literally it's like water, water, alcohol, alcohol, and it goes on from there, word for word, ingredient for ingredient, they are identical. So I did skip that one when I was making my purchases today. But here are the metals swatched dry. You can see here that they are still fairly pigmented. You don't need to have to mix it with the liquid to really get that full benefit. The benefit that the liquid offers you is much more brightness, much more boldness, and more intensity. You can see here the difference in the swatches here. I actually mixed all of them and swatched them on my arm, just so you guys can see the difference. They're definitely brighter, they're definitely bolder, and a couple words to the wise when doing the mixing fluid thing, okay? You guys need to have surprisingly more pigment than you think, and you need like a drop of that fluid. The only downside with this guy is that I have to get a dropper for him because I almost inevitably put too much every time I pour it into the little pot or little container if you want to mix them together. I almost always put too much in because it's just like one spout. I'll see if I can show you. Like, do you see that? it's just open like that. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. So I don't find I have a crazy unsteady hand, and I still feel like I pour quite a bit in. So make sure that you are really, really using a drop, 2 drops max, a lot more pigment than you think, to get that smooth result. Otherwise, you're going to get quite a runny result, and you don't want that. I never tested the wet metals on my eyes today, but I will be doing that in a future video, so do hang tight for that because it just would have clashed with all of this, I think. I definitely want to show you guys the swatches at the minimum and also give you those tips. I didn't use the tray that it came in because I still felt like the tray was messy. He did talk about this tray being more of like a clean way of doing it. I think the little tool that he has to scrape off pigment probably comes with his mixing fluid because it doesn't come in my palette anyway, or maybe I'm missing it and it's somewhere very obvious, but I don't see anything. So I had to use a small blade. Be careful with that, obviously. You could definitely cut yourself, but I used a small blade. I put it directly into a tiny Tupperware container, and then I put like 1 to 2 drops, mix them together, and that's what you have to do. So much more pigment, less fluid. It is really cool though that this is a very diverse palette that way, where you can use with a mixing medium or without. But the good news is if you really don't have any idea about how to mix them with a fluid, or you don't want to buy the fluid, or you don't care, it's too much work, etc., you can still use these and they still look beautiful dry as is. Now I did apply one of these dry on my eyes today, just so you guys could see. I did actually apply this yellow gold. And what I found was that was the one that had the most fallout. So this one has the most fallout on the face. Again, I would call it medium though, not too bad. The most fallout is like Anastasia Beverly Hills for reference. That's like a huge mess sometimes. This I would say is medium. The shimmer palette that he has offers light fallout, slight to light. Now kind of backtracking to this next product we have is the Eye Prep and Set. There are 3 colors in this one. We have light, medium, and deep. This is where I think a lot of people are upset about this. It's not as deep as they would like. It doesn't offer the versatility that he claims. So I'm gonna actually pull it up on Sephora here so I can be very, very correct. Light, medium, and deep. Essentially, this is not concealer. This is what I think when people were talking about this on promotion, Instagrams and things like that, they're like, oh, what a stupid idea for concealer. It isn't concealer. These are eye primers. We have one that's more of a pink, one that's more of a beige, and then we have the setting powder, which is a true translucent. I would say it's a little bit slightly beige, but the powder here, because you're using an eye brush, it's not gonna be super messy. I think that's what a lot of people thought when they're like, oh, a powder and 2 cream products, like, this isn't smart, right? But you're using an eye brush to set, in my opinion, it's not going to transfer too much for you. His idea of this though is that for light skin tones, you can use this one or mix them together for a custom shade. That was his whole idea, but I do see how it can be a little bit confusing, especially if you are between light and medium or medium and deep and you want 2 palettes, or you think you would need this shade from that and the other shade from that. So although I understand why he would do this, I kind of wish that he had done just singles with the powders and then just done multiple, kind of like a concealer lineup would have been, instead of just doing 3 and then kind of hoping that it includes everybody. You can see here when I'm applying it that one is definitely more of a pink and one is definitely more of a beige. To me, I think I can work with both, but the beige one is definitely a closer match to my skin tone. So that's the one that I will use probably more, but you can also mix them together if you like. The powder in this set is definitely light, and it does set the eye primer well, in my opinion. However, I do find that I let it kind of sit for about 10 to 15 seconds before I apply the powder, just because I found if I went too fast, some of the powder would get a little bit clumpy in certain spots because it was still a little bit damp. So it does set down by itself, but you do need about 10 to 15 seconds, then you can use the powder that comes with it. Now, do I think that this is like an outstanding primer? No, I don't think so. I think this is definitely an average primer. I think it's good. I think that my choice of an eye primer is definitely more of a smoothing, creamy mousse kind of consistency that sets down by itself. I also don't hate this one. So I do think this is a good option, but I don't think this would be like the best on the market. It does do well with his shadows though, which is the whole point. This little trio is actually 28 American dollars or 37 Canadian dollars. And like I said, there are 3 combinations in light, medium, and deep. Lastly, let's talk about the highlights because this was the second most popular request to dive into. This is where I am going to have the most negative feedback. Just so you guys know, just to preface this part of the video, again, I'm just going to be honest with you. I actually really adore Mario. I think that he's incredibly skilled. And I want you guys to know that from this video, this perspective, you're talking to a makeup enthusiast that has learned all the stuff by herself, is not a professional, not a makeup artist. So this is my kind of testimonial based on what an average makeup user would potentially experience. If that's you, then maybe we can relate to each other a little bit. But if you are a pro, then perhaps you have to test it out yourself and see how it goes. But the two highlight products that you guys really wanted me to test out was first the Master Secret Glow. This is actually the kind of creamy gel type liquid highlighter. It only comes in this one universal shade, which to me reminds me of, it's got a light luminescence to it, but it is kind of like a clear, slightly silver looking color in pan. That is how it looks to me. And this is actually, let me see the price. The price here is $24 American or $29 Canadian. The shade name is called Expensive, but there is only the one shade. Now, interestingly, he does say that this should not affect foundation underneath. You lightly have to pat it on the skin and it should keep base product underneath set and not moved around. And it's supposed to actually offer you quite a glow. So we're not talking about a subtle glow here. I think he's actually kind of wanting it to be a moderate glow. So when I applied it to my skin, I actually already applied my tinted moisturizer underneath because I wanted to test that claim. And to me, it didn't break apart too much, but it still does move a little. So that is something that I noticed right away. I also noticed that it was a fairly blinding highlight. I'll give him that. You can see in my camera here that because it's a clear pigment, there's not a ton of color to it. So I was trying to move my face around a little bit so you could see that it's actually shining on my skin. However, because it's so tacky, my little hairs, I have like little hairs here. Does anybody else? I don't know, I'm sure you guys do. Little hairs sometimes that come right here. It stuck to my face right there. I found it kind of annoying, not gonna lie. And I also found that I was waiting around for it to set. I actually looked online to see, I was like, am I doing something wrong here because it's not setting down? But it does say that it's supposed to be a nourishing, non-sticky formula. It's not sticky per se, but it's still tacky. Like it's definitely got a bit of a tackiness to it, that's for sure. But it says how to use. You tap the product onto your cheeks or eyes, moisturize your lips if you want with it, to wake up the skin, apply to high points of the face wherever you want to apply highlighter. So maybe I need to do more research on this and see, but I feel like I did it how he said, or how Sephora at least said, and I still found that it didn't really set down. So in a windy day, oh my gosh, you guys, it's gonna be like hair like this all day long. I'm telling you. Also, I just think that although he promises it shouldn't mess up base underneath, I do think upon like careful inspection, it does a little. It doesn't break apart too much, but you can tell that it's kind of been a little bit moved, if that makes sense. The last thing is actually this Master Crystal Reflector, and this reminds me in a lot of ways of the Fenty highlight, the one that she released for the holiday. I think it was a couple of years ago. This is what it looks like here in pan. Sort of has the same kind of spherical look to it, and it does have a very strong presence of that white glitter. When you swatch it on the skin too, it has that same kind of smoothness like the Fenty one does. It just feels like gel, like a light gel air. It's very thin, but the thing is that it does have a fairly present and prominent sparkle feature to it. Now, how I tested it today was probably not the best thing. So I'm going to be testing it one more time on cheeks that do not have this first highlight product there because it just clung and stuck to it. But even on the skin, you can see I'm wearing it today. It's not terrible. It actually looks kind of great on camera. However, in person, you can see that there's bits of clumpiness from glitter, and then other parts it's a bit smoother, and then other parts it's not as glitter heavy. So this is something that, again, not my favorite. I don't know. Maybe it's also because of the highlighter style. I don't find myself using my Fenty highlight ones a ton anyway, so it's probably why that is. But to me, it's just got too much of a glitterness to it. And if you have too much glitter but not enough pigment underneath it to support it, to me, it's just really loud. So if you want that kind of look, it's definitely bold, glittery, and shimmery. You don't have to put too much on. Like I obviously put a lot on so I could emphasize it in this video, but even a little bit, I think it can really show glitter particles on the skin, so just be careful about that. So overall, the things I'd recommend as of right now, Really, if you are a makeup artist and you want a matte palette, I actually think this is a really good option. Not gonna lie. I think that this is a fantastic buy. I think that the formula is fantastic. Like I said, I think this is a good one. When it comes to the shimmer formula, or the shimmer palette, I think this is nice too, but I think only if, again, just like the mattes, only if you think you would use this, that's the first thing, because there's quite a variety here, and it almost looks like one-off colors. Like, I think it's gonna be a little tougher to put just this palette looks together by itself, unless you just do like one shade all over the lid. You know what I mean? Like, the color story is kind of like pink and then green, then brown. Like, it's just big gaps when it comes to shades. Like, there's just like a red and a green and a yellow. It's very like rainbow, right? Which is okay, but I do think that most people, at least if you're like me, would probably see this more as an accessory palette. The formula though is bomb. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If you don't see yourself using the mixing portion, the fluid portion, and you want a shimmer palette, you can just stick to this other one. This one obviously has some different shades in the shimmer, but I don't know. I think that it has more fallout when used dry. And of course that quality with the mixing fluid makes this special. But if you don't want to do that, then just get the other shimmer palette because it has a lot of variety too. It does have a gold, it does have pinks, it does have coppers in the other one. Obviously they're different shades, but I don't know. I just think you would be great just doing this one if you didn't have any interest in doing a mixing fluid type thing. This one I think would be great and would probably just satisfy your shimmer preference with just this one. I don't think you would need both of them. The highlights, I would skip them both. I'm gonna do some more testing with them, but so far I just don't think that they're my favorite. And the primer I think is just okay too. I think it's something that's nice to have, but if you have a good eye primer, this isn't one that I am blown away by. That's just catastrophically different. It's just an average primer that does a good job. What do you guys think of this Makeup by Mario video, the collection, the line, etc.? I was actually fairly surprised to hear all of your thoughts already on this line, so do let me know what you guys think of this video. Are you going to be picking up anything that I talked about today? And until my next one, guys, take care. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.
You and me, everything that we've been through has made us strong. You won't believe we've had our gray, but somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows the way.